We're live 8 minutes into the second hour of worldwide broadcast. Dr. Nick Begich, eldest son of late United States Congressman from Alaska, Nick Begich Sr., his brother is the U.S. Senator from Alaska, and he's a best-selling author. The website is earthpulse.com. He heads up the lay group that's studying electromagnetics and advanced technologies. He's got a long bio. He really doesn't need any introduction here. He's also the author, of course, of Angels Don't Play This HAARP. We're going to get into Tesla technologies with him, which now, again, more and more mainstream news is admitting is much more advanced than we even know, that the FBI confiscated the documents and has suppressed much of it. I want to get into the bees dying, the bumblebees, 4 species of those, more than half of them gone, all sorts of bizarre bird die-offs that are going on. But the government says it isn't pesticides, though there is a pesticide sprayed generally in December and January that is restricted in use that only kills blackbirds. Jaron's in there researching it right now. All these big fish die-offs, the increase in volcanic activity here in the United States. We're going to discuss it all with Dr. Nick Begich. Plus that Daily Mail article, you guys pulled that out of the stack the other day. We printed it in color, admitting that they're putting up HAARP-type technology in Middle Eastern nations causing rainstorms, which is what Dr. Begich and others have gone over the patents and shown HAARP and other systems are a big part of. So this has always been in the scientific literature, if you know where to look. Weather modification, known as chemtrailing, the geoengineering. But what has changed is the internet has forced all this out in the open, so the mainstream corporate media is playing catch-up. Dr. Nick Begich, great to have you here with us.
Well, thanks for having me again, Alex, and it's always good to be with you, especially on these topics these days. It's pretty important issues.
You know, it's funny. We called you Monday, and I'd already told Jaron I wanted to get you on the show to talk about the birds and the news reporting on electromagnetic weather modification systems, farms they're putting in all over the world. Most of them, of course, are covert, but the Arabs are admitting they've got them. And then right after that happened, I guess great minds think alike. Coast to Coast AM called and got you and I on together. That was certainly an informative and fast-paced hour.
Yeah, that was great. You know, and it's been a long time since we've been together on radio, and it's always great to be on with folks that stay informed on this stuff, because as you know, so many people are just unaware, and it is a little bit technical, but these are the things of the 21st century and things that all of us can weigh in on.
Well, it certainly is. What do you want to tackle first? You want to get into the weather modification and the Tesla technologies, or do you want to get into the leaked document, EPA knowingly approved bee-killing pesticide, mass bird and fish die-offs, go global, spark end times panic?
Let's jump into the weather modification going on in the Middle East right now, because that, I think, is perhaps one of the big drivers for a lot of these things that we're starting to see. You know, the idea that we can modify weather utilizing technologies has been around a long time. People remember the stories of cloud seeding and using various chemicals and compounds to try and suck a little moisture out of the atmosphere. But really, some big changes happened, and the understanding of how energy interacts with weather systems became interesting for many researchers. Electrostatics, the stuff of the article in the Middle East, being able to create and stimulate rainfall, that's been around quite a while. In fact, if you go back to a number of years ago, back in the 90s, there were some very large fires in Indonesia blowing smoke into Malaysia. Many will remember that situation is pretty horrendous. But at that time, missed by most, but the mainstream did pick it up, there was an article about a Russian company offering electrostatics, basically saying, hey, we can steer we can create an artificial hurricane and blow the smoke right out of the way. During the Olympics, it came up both in Russia and China at various times that weather modification was one way to keep the Olympics free of bad weather. All of this, while all of this is going on and gaining great currency in terms of science, there's been no sort of regulation of it. When you look at the planet, you can't alter weather in one place and just expect that everything sort of stays in that neighborhood. That isn't how it works. Whatever we do in one place has profound and usually unexpected results elsewhere, and that's where some pretty significant risks come in. The other place, going back to some of the work that Bernard Eastlund was doing when he invented HAARP, that whole system was predicated on huge amounts of energy being available for manipulating weather formations. And what Eastlund discovered in 2004, 2005, a couple years before he died, was the idea that HAARP could manipulate what are called gravitational waves, which he believed were the root of weather systems, using energy 1/1600th of the energy he originally thought was needed. In other words, just a small fraction of energy was needed to manipulate gravitational waves that then would have this cascading reaction through geophysical systems, including weather systems. And that research he actually presented when I was working as executive director of the Lay Institute. We had Dr. Eastlund in Dallas for a conference on mind effects, and one of the things that he talked about, of course, was HAARP and some of its applications, particularly in this area of weather modification.
From your deep research, I know you've gone through that HAARP is multifaceted, over-the-horizon radar-type systems, weather modification. I mean, really, it's an array of things. But when you talk about gravitational waves, it's interesting. Fox News and others are pointing out that meteorologist, climatologist Piers Corbin, who we've had on before, stunningly can predict the weather with many times more accuracy than these big so-called computer models, because he focuses on gravitational waves, and he goes back to the multi-hundred-year-old science where the old-timers didn't know why, but it was connected to the moon changing, and they didn't know what the action was then. They just knew that when the moon was in certain cycles, it was doing certain things. Now they know that it's the moon causing different gravitational events, but also shielding the Earth, or exposing the Earth more to the solar winds of different ionizing particles. So there's a lot of things within the Earth, without the Earth, that are driving weather, the science shows, more than what mainline global warming type kook scientists say. And they know this too. They just want to ignore it and claim that humans exhaling carbon dioxide is causing it. So A, what is HAARP really? B, I've seen the reports that there are really HAARP centers all over the world. They just call them other things. And then C, could this be connected to the increase in earthquakes?
It could be. Let's go for the first thing. There are many facilities that have phased arrays, radio frequency transmitters designed like HAARP. HAARP is the acronym for this specific project, but these arrays exist in several locations around the world, including the former Soviet Union, Canada, throughout Europe. The Chinese even have one at Antarctica. So, that it's pretty widespread in terms of that. The technology and what HAARP is designed for is manipulating the ionosphere, changing this layer above the Earth's surface that is so responsible in large part for the quality and character of communications, for the fact that we have biological life even on this planet. And using energy essentially as the base of this system to alter the geophysics of the planet, the things that actually make the planet run and work. So think about it as sort of a man-made component shoved on the machine of Earth to change its character in certain respects and the way it works, using energy itself. And so when you think about sort of the direction in which this science has taken us, it's not just about HAARP. It's this whole revolution in military affairs. And I know you've talked to your audience about before. This RMA includes a whole class of weapons and technologies, of which HAARP is really just a very small part. It's just the one part that happens to have gotten a good bit of notoriety, because we sort of attacked that as one very fine example of where this technology is going. And more importantly, it is the largest radio transmitter of its kind ever designed and built in the world, and it presents huge challenges, particularly in the areas we're talking about today.
And of course, when we talk about this only being one component, we look at things like the Hadron Superconducting Supercollider, and just like 10, 15 years ago, they'd make fun of us if we even said HAARP existed. Now it's common knowledge. I read what the directors of Hadron have said, they've admitted, yeah, there's a small probability that this could create a strangelet or that a black hole could get purchased and actually get enough mass into it, but it's a low probability. But then that makes me go back to the 1950s and 60s where the U.S. was detonating high-powered hydrogen bombs in the upper atmosphere, and they thought there was a good chance it might actually destroy the atmosphere, but they still did it. So when I see statements like that, I mean, what do you, I mean, I know there's no way to quantify it, but I mean, just from a layman, this looks like this could really damage the planet or even destroy our civilization.
Right. Well, you know, this is, again, where science kind of moves on and sort of forgets the rest of us in the background as if we didn't exist. And a lot of scientists are very incensed when lay people, the average person, starts to weigh in on their issues. They feel like it's sort of their exclusive domain and no one else is qualified. And the reality is, when you talk about effects of technologies, we're all qualified to weigh in. We may not be the engineers or designers, but that should not matter. And in this century, what we're doing with this technology is either going to make us free or make us slaves. And
we all should have a debate and have input on that. Stay there. Let's get into Hadron. Let's get into other advanced technologies that you're concerned about. I also want to ask the question, why are so many of these HAARP programs, the Chinese and others, why are they near the poles? What's important about that?